There is a fifth dimension.
About the unknown.
Beyond that which is known to man.
The Garden of Thought.
The Babylon Project was our last best hope for peace.
Unexplained.
Mythologies.
This is the dimension of imagination. It is an area which we call...
The Garden of Thought with Jeff Lippman.
Eventually, our sun will grow cold and go out.
You're listening to something much bigger, something hidden in plain sight.
It won't just take us. It'll take Marilyn Monroe and Lao Tzu and Einstein. All of us was for nothing unless we go to the stars.
What you're about to learn will completely change the way you experience your mind, your thoughts, and yourself.
Let's make sure that history never forgets the name.
The Garden of Thought.
Welcome into the garden, and this week we are welcoming in Aaron Hynes. He is the host of the Breaking Ancient News podcast. He's also known by his certified X-Site Megalithic Mystery. He's an explorer researcher. He does tour guiding in the Andes Mountains. Probably does Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as well, and all-around adrenaline junkie, content creator, and hopefully a font of information. How are you, Aaron?
Oh, I'm doing well, Jeff. Excuse me. Thank you for having me. And what a great introduction. Yeah, you hit all the things, all the basis points, covered all the things I do. I've spent a lot of time living down in South America in the Andes Mountains, exploring a whole bunch of places. And so I decided to transfer my knowledge over to YouTube videos and into being a tour guide. So that's currently what I'm working on and what I enjoy doing.
That's fantastic.
So thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on. So how'd that happen? Like, how does a guy from America end up spending so much time in the Andes Mountains and becoming so prolific at it that at a relatively young age, because, I'm just looking at you and I think I'm older than you by a fair amount. So, how'd that journey occur?
Yeah, great question. I appreciate you asking, because it's always a fun to hear what drove each people to
Absolutely.
Embracing, I guess, the crazy part of their life. But by the way, I'm 36. I'm not that young. closer to 40 than into 30. So, thankfully I've got this patchy beard that doesn't grow in super well, so that makes me look a lot younger. I wish it was nice and full and thick like yours. You got a nice rich beard there that I'm jealous of.
This thing drives me crazy. Yeah. Well, I'm almost 57, so you are young to me. So
there we go. Oh, you look great for it.
Thank you.
Well, but to get into it here, I started off as a lot of us do, and I read a little bit of Graham Hancock a while ago, a decade and a half, maybe 20 years ago, and it was Fingerprints of the Gods, and that just got me excited about the possibility that, the mainstream was wrong. And, really, I'll be honest, I embrace that a little bit. I like proving institutions wrong. I think that's always a fun thing, because I think that, these institutions, whether it be academia, medicine, law, technology, government, whatever it is, have a tendency to serve their own interests instead of serving the best interests of the people. And that's what archaeology and academia needs to do. So I saw this Graham Hancock book and I read it, and it really inspired me and provoked something inside of me. But it wasn't until a few years later, till I think it was 2019, where I actually went on a tour down to Peru with Brian Forrester. Are you familiar with Brian's work?
I've heard of Brian Forrester, but I would be overstating if I said I was familiar with his work.
Yeah, so he's a tour guide down there in Peru, and he was kind of one of the first pioneers of doing megalithic style tours. So he kind of really inspired everybody else down there in the region, and a lot of these people that go all across the world. So I went on a tour with Brian Forrester. It was 2 weeks down there in Peru, and this must have been 2021. Yeah, I take it back, not 2019, 2021. So it wasn't even that long ago. Is when I got into this. But in 2021, it was right as things were kind of getting out of COVID, but things were still in COVID a little bit. So we went on this tour with Brian Forrester, and it was just absolutely fantastic. It was his first tour after COVID, and it was very intimate. We got to see all the megalithic sites down there and view all the ancient sites, go to Machu Picchu. But because it was in the middle of COVID, I'm a small business owner and had already set up my business to operate remotely because for a lot of state mandates we had to. So I'm down there and I'm thinking, geez Louise, there's so much down here. We're down here for 2 weeks. And I feel like I barely had even scratched the surface. So I got back home to the United States and I thought, you know what? Just going to move down there. So got everything situated, make sure everything functioned correctly, make sure I had a good internet connection, bought Starlink and brought it down with me, and I just went down and lived there for a few months, just living and working my normal job. And so that afforded me a lot of opportunities just in the evenings and on weekends to find all these megalithic sites, these ancient sites down in Peru. Jeff, have you had a chance to do any traveling to any of those places like that around the world?
It's funny you should ask that, because the answer is no. However, I am married to a woman from Ecuador who, until about 10 years ago, lived in Ecuador. So she's been to all those places, and it's very interesting to hear, her and her family and folks from down there talk about those places versus, I don't know. It's almost like, it's not ho-hum, but it's like we have a much bigger sense of mystery about it than it seems that the average, Andean does. I mean, it never comes up. And I've been doing this podcast for 6 years. And of course, places like Machu Picchu and concepts like the Vera, Cocha, and, and I have archaeologists and anthropologists and independent researchers, some from the Hancockian school, on all the time. And never, if you hear any ruffling there, it's her 26-year-old son, so my stepson, is never mentions it, never talks about it. So it's like, I don't know, it's like, I can't imagine it like if I live with, Egyptians, that they would never talk about the pyramids and the Sphinx, but such is my life.
You bring up a couple of great points, and it is so interesting because even when I go down to Peru and I make friends with Peruvians down there, the majority of the Peruvian people that live in the city of Cusco, they have no idea the significance of it, or even that some of these this theory of these megaliths and this ancient ice age civilization building it. They have no idea that this even exists. But I take them to these places and I show them, and I'm like, hey, it's not just Machu Picchu and Sacsayhuaman. It's like, hey, look at this. And how did the ink connection? And when I explain it to them, it opens up a whole brand new world for them. But because you're absolutely right, it's so commonplace for them because they're living there and it's been there in their society for thousands of years. It's not like it's got discovered. No, that's an unbroken chain of at least 1,000 years that people have been living in the city of Cusco. So for them, I guess, and for a lot of other people, it's mundane. It's just there. It's the same thing that oh yeah, I live in Arizona. Oh yeah, there's the Grand Canyon up there. Right. For everybody else that hasn't never been to the Grand Canyon, it goes the first time. It's so mind-blowing. But we'll have to get you on a tour down there, Jeff. Do you have any desire to travel to any of these places?
I do, in fact. But of course, that requires a stop in Ecuador, and the country is apparently in a state of chaos where there's a balance between the government actually being in control versus cartels being in control. So it's sort of like it is in Sinaloa, Mexico. It depends where you're. It's not exactly. Apparently, I am ripe for kidnap targeting. Not that anybody would want to ransom me, but apparently I would be attractive. As you said, I look good for my age. I guess there I look good for to get some cash.
Yeah, I guess so. How or what city is your wife from?
Zaruma.
Zaruma, okay, I'm not familiar with that one, but I know that Quito is a pretty safe place. But yeah, here's the plan. We can take like 3 weeks or a month, stop in Ecuador for 2 weeks and get you down to Peru for 2 weeks and show you all the places down there and take you to Machu Picchu. It'll be great.
Yeah, but definitely go to Quito. I'd want to go to one. I'd want to see the Galapagos, of course. And enjoy some of those beaches down there. But we would absolutely go. Machu Picchu was always on the agenda. Apparently, it's not that long a drive. So, Zaruma is in the south of Ecuador. It's a sort of gold mining territory.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. I know that the kind of southeastern Ecuador is a lot of the jungle region that hasn't been explored. And I bet there's a ton of stuff there that, if you ran over it with airplane doing LiDAR surveys, you'd find just some fascinating ancient cities there in the jungle.
I'm sure you're right. They keep finding ones in Amazonia, and then even I think Guatemala. Still. Yeah,
it's interesting that they just pop up everywhere. So it's I think of this problem as if it's like a giant puzzle, right? And the mainstream academia has kind of assembled the most of the puzzle, right? They say, civilization began here in the Indus Valley at around 6,000 or 3,500 BC, around 6,000 years ago, with the Sumerian civilization. Then it kind of expanded from here, and we started in Africa and grew out and expanded. And so they've constructed this framework of their puzzle, right? But then all these pieces just show up in archaeological finds and LiDAR surveys and Göbekli Tepe that don't fit into that puzzle that they have created. It's a piece that is completely different shaped. And so they're trying to jam that completely different shaped piece into the puzzle. And these civilizations and these cities in the Amazon are one of those misshapen pieces that doesn't fit into that puzzle that mainstream tells us. And they tell us that it was Aboriginals living here in the North American continent, and that they came over during the Bering Land Bridge. The Clovis First hypothesis debunks that. So it's like all of the more evidence that gets presented, the more things we find. It always just seems to keep changing and shifting the narrative of mainstream, yet they are slow. Despite all the failings of past academia in being slow to adopt and to adapt when new information presents itself, despite all those failings previously, they still continue the same trend of holding fast in their ideology as if it defines who they are. And for some of them, granted, if you are, say, Zahi Hawass, who by his own claim has inspected every grain of sand on the Giza Plateau and has literally, according to him, written every book imaginable on the construction of the pyramids. His identity is tied up with that. Sure. So if that narrative that he has constructed is broken, his credibility, his reputation, his work that he has done becomes somewhat invalidated. I think that's why people fight tooth and nail, is that human instinct to preserve that which we value and that which we've placed our time and effort into.
There's definitely an element of that. People are people. They have pride, they have stubbornness, for sure. And Clovis First has been at least questioned because there were footprints in whatever it's called, something sands. I can't remember.
White sands, yeah.
White sands. It was 22,000 years, which is older than 13,000. At a certain point we start to lose scope of time, but 22,000 years is older than 13,500 years. And I know that the findings of is it Monteverde in Chile are a little bit disputed, but there might have been settlements there as 25, 30,000 years ago. I know some people say now it was just pushed down into the mulch or whatever, into the mush. Maybe they're right. I don't know. But the world is really much more complex than a simple narrative. There's simple genetics link different peoples that don't necessarily fit, align directly. on the other side, people desperately try to find, align the links genetics to whatever their particular narrative is. And then in the background of it all is, the giants or gods or demigods or, or demons, that are part of it. And, unfortunately, the worlds that I explore and you probably encounter also, always sort of drift into that and, sort of get subsumed by ufology and big philology and things like that.
That's when it gets fun. But you're absolutely right. Yeah, people have their preconceived notions about things. Have you seen this new story recently about this? Yeah, that is fun. And we can go there, definitely. But have you seen, on that subject, have you seen that new story that popped up of this potentially million-year-old skull over in Asia that they found? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's like at least 400,000 years earlier than the last known skull they found that's, a Homo sapien humanoid. And that's pushed, so that's like literally doubles the amount of time that humans have been here in a similar form on the earth, like literally doubles it. So it's like, and Michael Button, I don't know if you're familiar with him, he's a content creator. He had a great video about this, but he talks about how there are gaps in the timeline of human history that, pop up and are potentially gaps where civilizations could have existed and have been wiped out. Look what humans have done in 10,000 years. We've gotten from sticks and stones to outer space, allegedly, But
I can tell you, I'm there right now. So
yeah. That being said, with all these other gaps, like what other things could humans possibly have achieved throughout the 4 billion years, or what? Maybe not humans, because humans haven't existed in that form, but humans have existed now for 700,000 years. There's been ups and there's been downs. There's been comet impacts. There's been megavolcanoes. There's been tsunamis. There have been things that have reset people back to the Stone Age, back to that starting point. But there could have been many, many instances where we're doing much different things than just hunter-gatherers or primates existing in trees or caves.
Could be. I mean, that's the fun of the what ifs. And like you said, there are a lot of gaps, and there's only, and there's so much that we don't know about the world right now. I mean, it said that we only know about 5% of the ocean. We know more about the surface of the moon than we do about the ocean. Nobody really quite understands how the brain works. I mean, but we also do know a lot of things too. So it's like, we sort of feel like gods at times, but you have to be. I can't remember which of the Socrates, Plato, or Aristotle line said it, but one of them said the only wise man truly knows how little he knows. So, something to that extent. And
yeah, the smarter you get to realize, like, the less that you know, or they say the more information you get to realize, the less that you know.
And then they spring quantum theory on us. So.
Oh yeah, crazy stuff like that. It's kind of interesting you bring up the oceans, though. There was, what's his name? I can't remember the congressman's name. Tim Burchett.
Was it Tim Burchett?
Was quoted. Yeah, I think he was quoted the other day about saying that they have alien bases under the ocean. Did that cross your feed?
It absolutely did. But for better or for worse. Tim Burchett says a lot of things, and sometimes the messenger is I didn't really like Harry Reid very much as a politician, but at least I took him as a serious person, and his commitment to studying UFOs and the existence of it. I want to like Representative Luna, but I just can't.
Yeah. Dude, this whole UFO thing has been driving me crazy. A few years ago, like maybe a year and a half ago, I should say, not a few years, but a year and a half ago, when Jeremy Corbell started his podcast, I can't remember what the name of it is, because I don't listen to it religiously anymore, but I felt like there was so much momentum and so much like pressure building, like David Grush hearing was coming out and all this stuff. And then it just like evaporated into nothing and left me so incredibly dissatisfied and disappointed that it took like so much of the wind out of my sails that like I can't really like get excited. I look at all of it. I still do, and I engage with all of it, but like I don't get excited about UFO stuff anymore because it's just like it's like the boy who cried wolf. It's like too many times of getting so close and then just slap down.
It's real.
I don't know how many more times I can do it, Jeff.
Right.
It's like it's going to happen. You think disclosure will happen?
No, I don't think disclosure will happen. I don't think they know. I mean, I think that whatever we're saying is tech that, at some points we're top secret and some of it's not, and some of it is employed today and some of it we're seeing. I mean, it makes you hope that the Atlas 31 is actually sending like radio signals or something as opposed to just emitting some sort of energy. But of course, if it does, the prospects of that are more likely to be terrifying than anything else. So this show is called Garden of Thought, but I don't know I don't remember when we first met, but it was rebranded from Garden of Doom. And so in its heart, it's still very doomy. I am an adherent to the dark forest theory. I'm not an adherent to believing that everyone that else is in the universe is so enlightened and lovely that it's a galactic federation and they're just waiting for us to get smart enough. I believe in the dark forest, the expanse, the three-body problem, or it's not going to be good. Or even if it's not by design, alien Earth. It's the chaos theory. So meanwhile we're making our own Terminators and Ultrons right now as we speak. So
those Optimus bots are getting pretty capable.
They sure are. I mean,
that's a little scary. So I had this vision, I guess you could say, premonition, and I started moving like my long-term investments away from things that I think are inevitably going to be replaced by robotics, by humanoid robots. And it's like every service industry, like hotels, gone. Driving, gone. Doctors, gone. Accountants, gone. Attorneys, maybe. But like so many of these mechanics, if you can get if it's just a matter of time. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when you can have a humanoid robot that works on a car as efficiently as a human does. It's just a matter of when.
Sure.
So like all of these things are gone. And that made me thinking like, what are the few things that are like not going to get replaced by human robotics? And I was thinking like super luxury services. Like if you want to get a massage by a human, you're going to have to pay a shitload of money to get a massage by a human. Because why would you when you can have a robot that's programmed to do it twice as good that can do it for 5 cents of electricity, right, or whatever it is. So the very exclusive luxury services will still be human. Like if you want to go to a hotel that has human waiters and waitresses, or whatever, a restaurant with human waiters and waitresses, that's going to be like a absolute premium. But everything else is going to go out of business. So like luxury personal services will stay in. But man, you're absolutely right. They're building these Terminators, and I think Terminator is the right word that you used, because they're going to, whether they kill us with bullets or whether they kill us with complacency, it's going to be the downfall of humanity in one way or another, because it is going to, as you said, or as you implied, displace a lot of people from their jobs and from their livelihood, terminate their ability to work.
Who ever thought that Ayn Rand's dream was going to lead to the necessity of socialism? I mean, we are going to libertarian ourselves into the need to have. I mean, I think alternative monetary theory is a little bit laughable, though. As the strongest government in the world, you can do it while you're the strongest government in the world and get away with it.
Yeah,
but without getting into too much into politics, as you pointed out, there's going to have to be some sort of basic, because there's a lot of professions are going to be gone. And the fact was, lawyers, I'm a lawyer. we write the laws, so we're going to be able to protect ourselves for longer. We're going to make sure that we're not going to be roboted out for a while. But the funny thing is, but because it's also a business, we're also going to screw ourselves because we're going to be replacing, young associates and law clerks and things like that with the AI and the robots. Well, when you don't have law clerks and young associates, you know what you don't end up having? Older attorneys and partners to buy you out in succession plans. So even then, just go with the straight line of greed and short-sightedness. And so don't worry, the lawyers will phase themselves out. I'll give it 3 or 4 generations longer, but it will. It'll be a flip in history.
Yeah, everything's going to get phased out eventually. So it's just a matter of when, what's the priority? I think cars, self-driving transport, truckers are going to get phased out real fast because they're a danger. They're actively dangerous. They can kill people, so that'll go pretty quick. And then what's next? Doctors? Yeah, why would I trust some dude who I expect to remember information when you have an AI that's got a database of 1 million patients that it can query stuff off of and look at, and then give you a determination based on, perfect remembrance and citation of 1,000 different textbooks, So it's doctors are going to go pretty quick once they realize that the AI ones are way better at it. I think that's going to be the slow thing. It's going to be that it's the fight of how long can you justify your existence before robots replace you. Man, this is getting a weird, dark conversation. Yeah, how long can you justify your existence before your livelihood is replaced by robotics? That's going to be an interesting...
So the lobbyists are going to be the last ones standing. The lobbyists and then the politicians.
Well, no, here's what I think. My thought is, and I thought about this for a while, I think one of the very, 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 very last ones is going to be martial arts training.
Okay.
Martial arts training. Because there's a specific... And this may be all training like this, dance training, artistic expression kind of thing. But with martial arts specifically, there's a trust that you have. If you're doing, I do jujitsu. And so there's a trust that when somebody's arm is around my neck and they're about to choke me and they can kill me because they've got me in a position, that they will let go when I tap them.
Right.
I'll tell you personally, I don't think I could let myself get into a position where a robot is in the position where it can kill me, and I'm going to trust it enough that I can tap it and let it know that to stop. Whatever could go wrong, they could glitch out, it could have a short circuit, whatever it is, it could get some crazy thing in the code. So I'm I think martial arts training or yoga, dancing, things like that are very human intimate are going to be the last things to go. Human intimacy.
I think that...
But not all human intimacy, because they're going to have sex robots quick.
I think there's already sex robots to be honest.
Oh, yeah. They're going to be...
I know that there are dolls out there, but
dolls.
Yeah, listen, everything always starts with sex and gambling. That's always going to be the easy stuff.
Yeah.
It's a good thing I don't gamble, and and I'm old, so I'm largely immune to
takes it off the table for you. You don't have to worry. We don't have to worry about you blowing your retirement savings on a $200,000 sex doll.
Right, but by the time this happens, then it's in 10 or 15 years, I'll be close to 70, in my 70s. I'm pretty sure you're exactly right on that.
Well, that's what they're going to get good. It's also only a matter of time before two things before both virtual reality, video games and movies that are computer generated are indistinguishable from reality. That's only a matter of time between that. I think that's going to happen first. It's going to happen really soon. They can produce a movie and you will not be able to tell that it's CG or computer generated. And then the second portion is, several years after that is having that humanoid robot where it'll be that uncanny valley where you don't know if that thing is real or not. But then you get into the fun stuff like Blade Runner scenarios, because they got so good you couldn't tell if it was a robot or not, and you have to get these people hunting them. So maybe we'll end up as a Blade Runner. Maybe Tesla's Optimus bot's going to push us to a Blade Runner scenario. I'm fine with that. A little dystopian, but, makes for good movies.
Indeed. Yeah. Well, what will the next movies be? And they'll be I think I mentioned it earlier, Alien Earth, you have 3 different kinds of, not exactly humans, and they're not exactly on the same page. So, you can have different ones hunting each other. So it's all interesting. It's all Frankenstein or the Tower of Babel, whichever, same story basically. But let's try to get back to the megaliths and ancient history and the wonderings.
Of course, always get sidetracked by all those fun topics.
Listen, I'm the king of meanderings. So, make no mistake, I'm the host. It's all my responsibility. I don't mind. I enjoy these kinds of conversations. I just have them all the time, and I have someone who's actually done these tours. So what is like your typical tour? Like, what are you showing people? Are you introducing them to like the mythology and the creation stories? Are you sticking to the hard history as you understand it? Do you do sort of like a little bit of both, like sort of Ed Barnhart does, sort of mixes it together?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for asking. That's like very pointed and direct and like very specific. Thank you. No, what I do with my tours is a little bit different with most people because I do private tours. I've yet to do a group tour down to Peru yet. I've only done private tours at this point in time. So what that entails, if you want to set up for tour, I give a list of locations on my website. You can go to megalithic.com/tours. And I have several different tour packages. But basically what it is I give you an idea, or you give me an idea of the things that you want to see. And then we work together. We actually build out your custom tour. So when I went on my first tour, it was with a group of about 20 people. And while I did have a blast on that tour group, we had some people with us that were like 65.
Sure.
They had a cane and they were slow. And I loved them to death and I loved them dearly and we're still friends. But it held me back from doing all the things that I wanted to do. And I'm sure for them, on the flip side, where, you had younger people in the group that were pushing and wanted to go do more and go to dinner and go out and stay later, for them it wasn't that good dynamic. It wasn't the optimal dynamic, is what I should say, optimal dynamic as well. So what I do is because of that, and because I live down there, we do these custom tours. We'll put together a tour for you, whether you want to go see the nature stuff. I've got a nature tour that is absolutely out of this world incredible. You can go see some of the most beautiful places on Earth down there in the Peruvian Andes. We've got the Mountain of Seven Colors. We've got Laguna Humantay. We've got glaciers. We've got mountain peaks over 20,000 feet. It is obscenely beautiful. So we've got like a tour like that, where if you want to focus on more of the nature aspect and the visual aspect of the Andes Mountains, we could do that. Or if we want to focus on, going and seeing the Incan ruins, we've got the Incan ruin tour, and then we've got that megalith tour where we can go all around to see the megalithic sites. But what I really like about my tours is when you come with me, you really do get a unique experience to Peru. 99% of the people that go down to Peru on vacation, they sign up with a tour group that takes them on the 13 sites that are listed on what's called the tourist ticket. They give you a tourist ticket. You pay for it's like 130 soles, so like $40, and it gives you access over a 10-day period to all these different sites. Tambo, Sacsayhuaman, Tipon, Chinchero, Lima Tambo, Pucara, like a whole bunch of different sites. And so when you go on a tour with most of these organizations, they stick to those sites because they're easy to access, because they're on the tourist ticket, and because they're organized. However, those sites, unfortunately, are some of the least interesting sites that you can go see. And even when they do go to those sites, even when they do go to Sacsayhuaman, which is it is probably my favorite place on Earth and one of the most mysterious places on the planet. But even when they do go to these places like at Sacsayhuaman, they miss out on a ton of the stuff that's like right nearby because they don't know where it is. They don't know how to get there. But like at Sacsayhuaman, there's what's called the Chincana Grande, which is this huge boulder that's maybe a half a mile up from the megalithic wall there, that's just got these incredibly precise right angles carved into it. But again, 9 times out of 10, the people that go on these tours to Sacsayhuaman, they miss out on that completely. So when we get the custom tour, because I lived there, and not only did I live there, I lived there as a gringo that appreciates this stuff. So as a foreigner, not just a local. So I know the things that foreigners want to see. We'll set you up with any kind of tour that you want and go see the things that are important to you at the pace that you want. Another thing about the Andean, going to Cusco, is people forget it's at 11,000 feet in elevation. That's pretty high.
Yeah.
I'm over here in Idaho right now. Where are you located, Jeff?
Maryland. Okay, yeah. You guys don't have any mountains over there. The Appalachians, they're not real mountains, and I think those are pretty far from you. Yeah, but our mountains are not those mountains. Yeah.
Yeah. Even over here in Idaho, we're in the Rockies, but the highest peak in Idaho is 13,000 feet. That's the highest mountain in Idaho is 13,000 feet. Whereas Cusco, you're living at 11,000 feet. So it's a huge difference in terms of and it affects so many people differently, the elevation, how much you're able to do. With these custom tours, it's great because you can just choose the things that you want to do. We organize it around you, and you get to do only the things that you want to see, or you get to see only the things you want to see. And it's really fun. But Peru is an absolute hotspot for what I call the megalithic mystery. So for those of you listening to this podcast that aren't familiar with that, I'll just kind of explain my theory. And this is my theory that's built on, researchers before me, Robert Schoch, Graham Hancock, to name a few. Those are kind of some of the main guys in the space. But what I believe is that during the last ice age, there existed on Earth a civilization that spanned the globe and was responsible for many of the stone constructions that we see everywhere, whether they are directly responsible for building them themselves or passing along the information to build them, on how to build them. But those structures such you find at Baalbek in Lebanon, all over Turkey, all over Peru, the megalithic sites in Japan, China, Malta, Göbekli Tepe, of course, but that's a different story. So all Egypt, all these places all over the world, Mexico, they all have these extraordinarily similar and uncanny hallmarks of construction. And they're all attributed, again, by mainstream archaeology and history, to the Bronze Age civilizations that were using stone and copper and bronze tools. Well, I can tell you, personally, that when you go down there to these sites in Peru and you see the precision at which these megalithic 40-ton stones are carved, shaped, and placed together, you realize that a civilization that was pooping in the woods and smashing things with rocks together did not build them. They tried and attempted to replicate the style of the megalithic blocks that they found down there, the Incans specifically, but they weren't able to match it completely. It is inferior to the quality of the things that are attributed to more ancient civilizations, and you find the same at Baalbek in Lebanon. It's attributed to the Romans, but you can see the Roman constructions on top that are clearly Roman construction, yet the megaliths underneath are far superior in terms of their size, their precision, and the quality of the stonemasons and the stonework. So there are a lot of other factors that point to what I call the megalithic mystery, but essentially that is what we're working with. Now, what happened to this civilization is whatever happened to the end of the last ice age. Now, I have a full video about this on my channel explaining it, so if anybody's interested, go to the megalithic mystery on YouTube and watch it. Excuse me. But what happened to this civilization is what's called the Younger Dryas period, as I'm sure you're familiar with, Jeff. There was lots and lots of upheaval. There's the Younger Dryas debris field where they find all sorts of impact debris and a matte layer, a carbon layer of carbon scoring where fires hit the earth. And it's also accompanied by a dramatic temperature drop, which would, if there are particulates thrown up into the air by a meteor impact, which is what I think happened, that would, cause like a nuclear winter to happen and cause a temperature drop and the sea level to rise. So whatever happened on the Earth wiped out and reset human population essentially back to the Stone Age. And this was 10,600 BC to about 9,600 BC, as I recall off the top of my head. So that's when this occurred. Again, right along the same lines of the construction placement of Göbekli Tepe. So this Younger Dryas period occurred in whatever civilization existed, and I don't mean that they were advanced in the same way that we were, where we're building combustion engines and extreme metallurgy to get us to space, but more advanced than hunter-gatherers, and they had in some way the ability to circumnavigate the globe. So this civilization existed, was reset to the Stone Age, and then humanity had to start back up again from there. And that's when we see, there's, Jeff, I know that you're into all this stuff, so I know that you're all familiar with all the legends about, visitors coming down and transferring information to people. That's why you see like the spontaneous farming all across the world, all at the same time, 6,000 years ago. But that's like after this 5,000 years of chaos of humanity struggling, humans struggling to just basically survive in caves from the end of the Younger Dryas period when...
Well, theoretically, it's only because that's when, writing started around 6,000 years ago. So, it's all, supposition. There's archaeology and anthropology, of course, but but you're right. There are gaps and there are Dark Ages. When we think about the Dark Ages, it turns out the Dark Ages were only in Europe, so it's the rest of the world wasn't necessarily in Dark Ages. So some of the rest of the world was advancing, that allowed Europe to catch up. And I'm both sympathetic and annoyed by the people who say that belief in the ancient civilizations is inherently racist. So you're saying that the people there couldn't do it, and yeah, there are definitely people who say, white giants with red hair and whatever. There are those, but that's not everyone. I'm not even sure it's most people. I think most people are just saying, no, the indigenous people there were capable of doing it. We don't know where it started. It could have been the people, from whatever Peru was called then who started. It could have been the people in Egypt who started. It could have just been one of those, divergence kinds where, people sort of learn things around the same time. Calculus was, discovered at least 4 different times that we know of. So, I don't think it's inherently racist to think that Egyptians prior to written Egyptian history had other technology. They're still Egyptians.
Yeah.
So,
that's the card that they play when they don't have a valid way to dispute your argument. That's the thing. It must be racist, or it is racist, when they can't actually argue your point.
Yeah, and our problem is that alternative thinking has always sort of flirted with radically alternative thinking. So, or vice versa. You have all the Ultima Thule, folks, and which is sort of like the Aryan Eden, Hyperborea or whatever. And it's fun to know a lot. It's also sort of a headache to know a lot, but you hear about these philosophies that are created, or these Gnosticisms, and they're attached to names, and basically they all took elements of existing myths and stories, and they crafted their own omni myth and said this is the truth, and then someone else took out different elements and said no, this is the truth, and and then every now and then you have a Zecharia Sitchin who took that and wrote science fiction and said this is the truth, but still no one's been able to. There are theories. I've spoken to archaeologists and anthropologists and architects, really smart people, very establishment, and they're like, we have theories how some of these things were built. Or they say, we know how they did it in Egypt because they told us, they have records of it. Okay, terrific. I'm very interested in that. I'm very easily convinced by something like that, but where you don't have it, the knowledge in Egypt, how did it get transferred to Peru or Cambodia or Guatemala or, whatever, granted these places had different names at the time, of course, if they had names at all. But it's just, there's still theories about how things were basically mortared and fused together in perfect symmetry. The Flintstones offers the greatest solution is that you actually had quarries with dinosaurs, and Mr. Slade was having giant brontosauruses, pterosaurs, bringing these blocks around.
That would sure make things a lot easier. Yeah, if you could just get a stegosaurus, or what's one of the long neck ones? What did you say, brontosaurus? Yeah. Have a brontosaurus or a team of them lift a couple 100-ton blocks. I bet they could do it.
Well, like this, I think there's sauropods. I think it's a pterosaur, which I think is entirely different. I don't know. 4-year-old me is ashamed of me right now because 4-year-old me knew all the dinosaurs back then. Before the Jurassic Park movies still introduced us to entirely more dinosaurs. Sure, it's also fun to think that there's a race of supermen, Herculeses and Thors who could do it, or giants who do it, and I've heard the scientists and the zoologists and the biologists and what is it when they sever. It doesn't matter who say that there's a rule with gravity that humans, creatures can only get so big, and humans that big, they would collapse on their own bone structure. Okay, I get it. So, but still, that doesn't really tell us how. And I fully understand that people created myths too because they couldn't explain it back then. I did have a question I wanted to ask you that's actually pointed, and I'm sure that you would answer to.
Yeah.
What do the people in Peru actually say? And I know there's not a people in Peru, just like everyone else. I know the Incas weren't always there, and I know there's different tribes, and there's different people who have emigrated there and moved around but what do the people say? Are there different positions? Are there different opinions? Like what I'm not one to overly romanticize indigenous folklore just because it's indigenous. Any more than I would romanticize that Paul Bunyan was really, working in the American West. But what do they say?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question because just going to take a little bit of context to set up because in Peru's a fascinating place. So when the Spanish invaded, actually let me back up a little bit. When the Spanish invaded in the 1500s, they invaded the Incan people, but the Incan Empire at this point in time had just gone through a civil war, and the Emperor Atahualpa was his name. He had just defeated his brother from the north and reunited the empire. And at this point in time, Francisco Pizarro, he was the conquistador that came down. He saw recognizing the chaos that had just unfolded in the Peruvian nation. He took advantage of that and captured the Emperor Atahualpa in the city of Cajamarca and effectively toppled the Incan Empire. But when you think of the Incan Empire, you can't think of it as one united people. The Inca were the ruling class of people. It was like a high family.
Folks. It's the civil asterisks. It's the civil wars that destroy empires. So those are my fellow countrymen who want to have a civil war. Think twice. The Roman Empire wasn't sacked by the Gauls because the Gauls were so, the Vandals or whomever, and the Goths because they're so powerful. It's because of all the civil wars.
Yeah, it's a fascinating story, the downfall. If Emperor Atahualpa wouldn't have been there for the Civil War, he would have been back in the mountain retreat of Cusco, and there's 0% chance that the Spanish with their 150 dudes could have taken him out. Right. So you're absolutely right. Yeah, civil wars destroy countries, destroy empires. Yeah. So the Inca, they were the ruling class. So it's like the ruling family, right? So their empire was so extensive because they conquered other peoples and said, hey, you can be a part of our empire. All you have to do is worship the high Inca and worship the sun.
Very Roman.
Obey all our rules. Like, pretty simple. And then you get access to our technology. They had really good engineers for terraces and for building roads and for trade. So there's very, very few people that they conquered by conquest, but they were very capable of that. So the Incan Empire is kind of this large conglomeration of things, of other peoples, right? So when the Spanish invaded and the Incan Empire fractured, people kind of went back to their original peoples. So up in Ecuador, they kind of aren't really the same peoples as the people down in the Cusco region of Peru, where the like the high concentration of Inca people were, even though the whole entire thing is part of the Incan Empire. So the second point is that the Inca people did not have any written language. They kept track of numbers and accounting using this strange rope system.
Right.
So there was no written language. It was all passed down oral traditions. So when the Spanish invaded, they came, they captured Andean at the Huaypa, they went up to Cusco, they established their city there, they built their temples, they destroyed all the aboriginal stuff that they could, because that's what they like to do to enact their psychological warfare. And then they brought in their chroniclers to document everything that happened. Once they established control, they brought in their chroniclers, their documenters, people, their writers, the nerds. Brought in the nerds, brought everything down. They're historians. So they've got this one guy, Garcilaso de la Vega. That's his name, and he wrote the Chronicles of the Inca, and it's the most extensive account there. And so that's where we get a lot of our information from the Inca about what they thought at the time, about what happened. Caveat, though, this book was written 70 years after the fall of Cusco.
Sure.
So not only is it being passed down from, Quechua, which was the language that was spoken, to Spanish, which was a completely new language. But it's an oral tradition to oral tradition to oral tradition to a translation into a new language to pass down orally or written down in some stuff. So there's like this huge disconnect of information.
And probably some
we do have this
Catholic censoring as well.
Yeah, and lots of that. Very important point. We can't forget about that. So we have this Chronicles of the Inca by Garcilaso de la Vega, and in it he talks about a couple of different things. Now, I'll explain that in just a sec. But in modern day, I told you there's a lot of context to that question. There was a great question, one of the best questions you could have asked. But in modern day, because of the region and how isolated the Cusco region is, again, it's at 11,000 feet. It's either a 1 hour plane ride or an 11-hour car ride to get out of there to Lima. So it's crazy difficult to get out of. So the population is very, I can't remember the word for that, but there's not a lot of travel outside of that. Like, people don't leave. It's not like America, United States, where like you can just hop up and move to the other side of the country super easily, right? That takes money and logistics and convenience. And down there in Peru, they don't have a lot of that. So
they're free to move, but it's hard to do it.
Yeah, exactly. I tell people that all the time. I say, people say that the United States is the land of the free. That's bullshit. Like, the United States is the land of rules and laws. You go down to South America, that is the land of the free. They don't give a shit. They don't care what you do. Like, you can just pay your way out of it. Or as long as you're not like doing things to like bother other people, most people like don't care. Like, live your life, do your thing, be free. So yeah, Peru's the land of the free. But so Cusco nowadays, because the population has existed there for essentially 700 years without much leaving, you have a very consistent line of people that have practiced the same things and done the same things. So you have this amazing reverence and respect. I mean, obviously it's like a little bit different now in terms of like 2025 because of like the internet and because people are getting to be able to leave and get more information. But with like the generation right behind me, you have this amazing and intimate respect and reverence for Spanish colonial stuff and indigenous Incan stuff. They like have this beautiful fusion of it. They respect both, they revere both, and they love both. And I think it's because they don't have the crazy ideas that I have that, it wasn't the Inca that built all this. Most people down there attribute it all to the Inca, but they have this great respect for it. But then when you dig into it, when you dig into the account of Garcilaso de la Vega, you find two different stories. You find one where he says that the Emperor Pachacutec, who was the one that kind of reunited the Incan Empire a long time ago, 200 years before the fall of Atahualpa. So 200 years before that, they say this emperor Pachacutec went up into the mountains and divined information from the gods and came back down and built the megalithic stones at Sacsayhuaman, and that they were melting and softening some stones. There's a different account of them. But also, so that's in Garcilaso de la Vega's account. So that's where modern history, and if you look up like who built the stones at Sacsayhuaman, it gets attributed to Emperor the Sapa Inca Pachacutec because of that. But then in a different portion of the book of Chronicles of the Inca, Garcilaso de la Vega talks about how the Incan people told of them arriving to the Cusco region, and it was either angels or giants that had built the structures there before and gifted them to the Incan people. So there's both of those accounts in the story of the Inca by Garcilaso de la Vega, but the historians, the mainstream history in academia has said, oh, well, we're going to take this one account and say that Pachacutec built it because it's more grounded in reality. When honestly, neither of them are grounded in reality. You have a fantastic story about an emperor who, after uniting the empire, goes up into the mountains and learns from the gods and comes back down inexplicably and knows how to build these giant things.
Like Moses.
That's as unbelievable to me as angels or giants did it.
Yeah, of course. It's like Moses, except he learned architecture and construction. And and the other is, everyone. Atlantis, Uriel, whether Cain, whatever. Everyone, they've got Prometheus. There's always
exactly.
And so he or whoever, there's always the someone, Apollo, who, taught the Hyperboreans. I mean, this legend is everywhere. And
it's absolutely everywhere. And then they also have the legend, it's along the same lines, a second one exactly like that, which is the Emperor Vera Cocha, who comes after the cataclysm, shows up on Lake Titicaca and distributes knowledge and information and lost technology to them. So it's like, that's along the same lines of all that flood myth stuff.
Then he gets defeated and leaves, but one day he will return, which sounds a little bit Arthurian or maybe Christian.
Jesus, Buddha, whatever, Muhammad. Everybody.
Messianic. The Savior shall return. Star Wars.
There you go. But anyway, so the modern people now in the city of Peru, in the region of Cusco, they have, you'll find like the indigenous people, if they pay attention to the teaching of their ancestors and the Aboriginal way, they all believe and they all have the knowledge that, oh no, the Inca did not build these stones. But then you have just like the general population of people that just like follows the main like academia, and that's what's in the textbooks and stuff. They just think it's the regular thing, but they have great respect and openness to this alternative way of thinking. Because like every single Peruvian that I've talked to about this down there, they're like, oh my goodness, you're absolutely right. Like I can see it, because you can, like, you get down to Peru, it's clear as day. It's so clear that you see these impossibly precise granite polygonal walls down there, laser-like precision. You couldn't fit a credit card in between them. And then you see Incan stuff built on top. And you're like, wait a second. If you could build the stuff on bottom, why are you building shitty stuff on top? Why are you building crappy stuff on top? It just doesn't make sense. So once you have that framework of, oh, there's a different possibility, then you can go down there and view this stuff, it becomes exceedingly clear, even to people that have grown up there their whole lives. My friend Russell,
when I was like 12, building Legos, you start with the foundation of the big blocks and everything looks neat and orderly. Then when I get to the little blocks, it gets more chaotic.
Exactly, the exact same thing. But if you had the capacity to do everything with the nice, big, nice, organized blocks, you would. Because you want to build nice stuff.
Yeah, don't steal my Lego theory.
Yeah, dude, I still play with Legos. It'll be great, Jeff. When we get you down to Peru, they sell knockoff Legos, but they're not knockoff Legos. They are, and I swear to you, built in the exact same factory, or the Chinese just copied that factory and cloned it right next door, because the pieces are exactly the same, just without the Lego branding on it. And they are incredibly cheap. Like I bought the like the $900 Star Wars Star Destroyer set that's like, 3 feet long. I bought that down in Peru for $100. It was great. Actually, I put it in a suitcase, brought it back to the US with me. So that's like when I take people on tours to Peru, I'm always like, if you like Legos, we're going to go get some Legos because they're cheap down here.
You hear that, Denmark, go protect your IP. You're too busy worried about Greenland. Nobody's taking Greenland.
There's not enough money to sue anybody down there in Peru. They're too cheap. They're too broke.
Well, you can sue for the fake money because apparently it's the largest counterfeiter of U.S. dollars in the world is in Peru. It's like they counterfeit more U.S. dollars than...
Oh, they counterfeit in Peru? Oh, that's cool. Good for the Peruvians, stepping up. Now let's just put all that creativity into a positive thing. Not counterfeiting U.S. dollars. That's where they make the cocaine, too. So up in northern Peru. Thankfully, when you come down to Peru, Cusco is very, very south. It's away from the drug trade. It's very safe. I had a 2-year-old child with me when I lived there. Super safe. But up north, that's where they make the gasoline or make the cocaine in the jungles with gasoline and acetone. They are extraordinarily clever. But we need to focus that into a non-drug, non-counterfeiting energy.
Yeah. Well, like I said before, sex and gambling, and I should have put in there also some sort of getting high mechanism. That's the third of the unholy trinity.
Oh yeah, that's my vice.
But I guess you don't need the robots to get high. I mean, so you can do that.
You don't.
Yeah, probably not. So the folks down there, it seems like they're sort of non-committal about it. They're sort of like, hey man, it's cool, whatever.
They're open to it, but they're also, it's a different world down there. We live lives of such privilege where I have the capacity, the time, the energy, and the resources to come on and do your podcast and to talk about this stuff. Sadly, most of the people down there, they are focused on
day-to-day
eating,
right,
providing food for themselves and their family, making sure that their roof over their head is taken care of. Because there's not like a fallback system and safety system like there are in a lot of Western developed countries. So it's not that they are nonchalant about it. It's that like their capacity for emotional and thought energy goes into different things. But when I show them this and I take them on the tours, they absolutely are fascinated by it and love it. They just haven't thought about it, and they're just in a different world. Like they exist in a different world. And so even when I go down there, I'm like intruding on their world existence and kind of like poking it, like they're poking into their bubble.
Well, and you don't distribute enough like cigarettes and real American dollars.
Yeah. And I love them before that because they're beautiful people in spirit. I wouldn't say physically, especially the mountain Peruvians are short people, short and very homogenous looking people.
Yeah, that's the thing about mountain people tend to be short because at your lower center of gravity, it means you're less likely to fall down the mountain. So all of those mountain giant stories, probably not so likely. It's interesting.
If you think about South America as like a fantasy land, Brazil and Colombia is where the elves are, and Peru is where the dwarves are.
Ah, gotcha. Understood. Yeah, I remember reading that the average Incan male was like 5'1" during the height of the Incan.
Yeah, very short.
Yeah,
but they're beautiful on the inside, and that's what's most important to me. And that's why I'm purchasing land down there to build a small hotel. But that's a different conversation altogether.
Oh yeah, that's exciting.
The people are just beautiful, and they're hardworking, and they love life so much. In the city of Cusco, there's this thing, like there are 300 different days on the calendar year that are like celebration days of some sort. So it's like basically every single day, you can find some sort of parade, you can find some sort of party, you can find some people doing something. They love to have a good time. They love to dance. They love to celebrate. They have such a rich, vibrant, beautiful culture that when you go down there and experience it, you get that like Avatar longing, you know, where you're just like, you're sad for your own life that you weren't able to grow up with this rich tradition and history of people that have lived and existed for a long time. Like, we're so fragmented here in America. Like, you know, I guess I'm Irish and Scottish and English and a whole bunch of other stuff, but like, you know, my parents or my family's been traveling across the U.S. for who knows how long, and Canada for who knows how long, whereas those people, they've lived there and passed down their information to their children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren consistently, so that like they even have like regional dances, like specific dances for each city and region of Peru. It's amazing. It's beautiful. I love it. I miss it. We'll get you down there, Jeff.
When are you going back? When are you opening your hotel?
Hotel should be open up here in a couple years. I'll hopefully be going back this December or maybe January. Go back down there and just kind of live down there for a little bit, go do some filming of some other places. Still trying to figure out plans. I got some stuff that's keeping me here in the United States. I got to be, if you aren't familiar with this and your audience isn't familiar with, the Quest for Ancient Civilizations conference is happening December 5th through 7th in Scottsdale, Arizona, and I will be in attendance and hopefully presenting at that conference in Scottsdale, so I'll be here for that. But then after that, my schedule opens up and I can, you know, zip back down to avoid the winter and avoid the cold. You guys get hit pretty hard up there in Maryland. I don't know if you are an enjoyer of that kind of nonsense, but I'm not.
I like 4 seasons. I have to be honest. I will take winter over summer, you know, anytime.
Winter over summer?
Yeah, absolutely.
You're crazy.
Look at me. I'm a big fat Northern European. I'm closer to walrus than I am to surfer. So
you got some Viking blood in you, that's for sure.
Yeah. It's like, you know, whatever I got. I'm built for the cold. I am built for the cold. I don't really think it's cold until it's like under 30, and even then, that's not so bad. Like once it gets under 20, I don't like it. But
well, let me sell you on Peru then, because Cusco, Peru, in my opinion, has the best weather on the planet. Let me explain. It is 70 degrees all year long, but because you are close to the equator and because you are high up in elevation, it's very interesting. The air is thin, does not retain, it has a lower oxygen content. Oxygen, of course, is one of the building blocks of water, right? What does water do? It retains heat. So the air there does not retain heat, does not retain moisture or heat. But the sun is intense. So when you walk outside, though the temperature thing may say 70, 72 degrees, you walk outside, it feels like it's 90, 95 degrees. The sun is intense. It is beautiful. It is great. But then you step into the shade and it's 65 degrees or 70 degrees and there's a 70-degree breeze. You can escape the heat when you don't want to deal with it, but it's there all the time. And I love it.
So I'd have to be one of those guys with a parasol, basically.
Well, yeah, what I do, I like this shirt right here that I'm wearing, this nice thin shirt, because I'm very, very pale. You know, I get burned very, very easily. Right. I just wear one of these. This is what I wear all the time, every day down there. Thin, light, and long, and it keeps you protected from the sun.
Yes,
the weather there is great, and it doesn't get cold, and there's no bugs.
You're basically an in-shape leprechaun.
Exactly.
Yes, and so I would have to be like Gary Oldman in Dracula. I mean, I'd be like ridiculous sunglasses, a big top hat, and then a parasol.
Or just get good thick layer of sunscreen on you.
Oh no, I'm staying in the 70. You can sell me on 70 all year. Now, I thought you were going to tell me that at night it goes down to 30. Which, by the way,
it does go down to 30. It does go down to 30.
I lived in Santa Fe for a short period of time, and I spent a summer in Boulder, Colorado, so I know what you mean by the intense heat of summer. Now, that's not 11,000 feet up, but it's a mile high. It's 5,000 feet up. Santa Fe, I think, was similar. I think it's 4,000, 4,500 feet above that. I'm not good in the thin air, big surprise, but you do. Even I acclimated the Boulder time. I didn't do so well the New Mexico time, but to be honest, I don't think I want to. But I did acclimate to green chilies. About 3 weeks in, I was like, oh my God, I love huevos rancheros with green chilies. The McDonald's had green chilies on their quarter pounders. Oh, it was fantastic.
Oof. Sounds good. I love food like that. When we get you down to Peru, we have a secret down there. that they don't allow up here. It's coca tea, from the coca plant, but it helps so much with the elevation sickness, it helps with your blood flow and with blood retention in your brain. But you drink that, like every day when I get down there, I'll start my day, I'll put a coca tea bag and a mint tea bag in the same thing with a little bit of honey. Whew, it is perfect. It is perfect. But they don't allow it outside of like these South American countries, the use of the coca leaves, because apparently it's so easy to turn into cocaine. But it's all legal down there, and so you have these mountain men that they'll chew it all day. They'll have a big dip of the coca leaves, but you can drink it, and it's a good tea. I actually have some that I snuck back here to the United States. Don't tell anybody.
I won't. Don't worry about it.
Even though this podcast is going out live, that's all right. They can't prove it. You don't know where I am.
No, nobody knows where you are. The whole Idaho thing, that was a ruse.
Yeah, that was a misnomer. I'm actually in Guatemala.
That's right. Guatemala, Siberia at that. So, yeah. Very good. All right. Well, you're a pretty good salesman. You're a pretty good salesman for the whole area there and for all of that. I am, there's a whole bunch of conferences. I know it's sort of conference season, but that sounds like a fun one. Well, let's tell the folks where they can find and follow you, and then what they can, when they can expect to see new content from your podcast and YouTube channel, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the tee up there. So, I'm going to be, you find me on YouTube, Megalithic Mystery. I'm dropping 2 videos every single week of my ancient explorations. So a video just came out on Friday. Video will be coming out on Tuesday. So I'm putting out a lot of content out there. I've just got a lot of film because I've been to like 100 of these ancient sites all over the world. And so I'm just putting all the film together and like going through and doing like a video commentary of it. So it's pretty cool to see. I can give some context about what you're looking at. So follow Megalithic Mystery there. Follow Breaking Ancient News on YouTube as well. We just did an episode today. It was a live episode. And that's a fun one. And I'd love, Jeff, if you or your audience have any recommendations, send them my way. Because what we do is every 2 weeks we're doing this, and we're just doing essentially a news show about all of the podcasts, news, research, drama, new explorations, whatever it is that's happening in the ancient history / discovery community. So like the new explorations that are happening in Peru right now, and some of the LiDAR stuff that's happening over the jungle. And so anytime that there's like a new podcast or new paper, one that just featured the other day was a Nature article that found these stone pictographs that were from 9,500 BC, and these just incredible stone pictographs. So follow Breaking Ancient News, because it's just a discussion show that happens every 2 weeks where we talk about the new things that are happening in the ancient history world, new discoveries. It's a lot of fun. Yeah, if you guys get a chance, come out to Quest for Ancient Civilizations, because I'll be there. You can meet me, give you guys some merch, because I'm giving away a whole bunch of free hats to everybody that comes down there. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Wide brim hats for Peru for that intense sun?
No, I'll show you here. Sadly, there's these, we give them away on my channel with every video, but they're these Megalithic Mystery hats like this, Jeff. I know your audience can't see us, but
no, it's a cool bit. It's a baseball cap. It's got a logo on it. 3 different colors. It's not nothing. Yeah. That's all right. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, if you go follow Breaking Ancient News and you drop a comment, the top comment each week wins a free hat. So I mail it out all over the world. I had to dude. I had to mail one to England the other day, and that cost me more, like twice as much as the hat cost me. It was like $32 to send the hat to England. That hurt, but we had some good, subscribers over there, so. Got them.
Trade wars are fun. Fun with trade wars. Yeah, well, thank you for being on. Thank you for bringing this. Thank you for entertaining some of my more outlandish stuff. I mean, I'm sure you've heard it all before or similar themes.
And thanks so much for having me, Jeff. You asked some fantastic questions, and you gave me some great ways to just set up, talking about some of the things I love talking about. So honestly, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for being a good host and asking me the questions that you did, because it was really, really helpful.
I appreciate that. And folks, if you are a fan of Aaron and that's why you're here, thanks for joining us. Thanks for coming in. So the show is called Garden of Thought. Just go to any of your podcast providers and hit subscribe. You'll generally get 3 shows a week. Some will be like this. Some will be a little bit more legal, business, realpolitik, or things of general interest. And then my little guilty pleasure about every 2 weeks, I have a show called The Gospel of Thomas, which has nothing to do with the Bible, except that it was originally the Book of Black, because my co-host then was PJ Black, who some of you might know as Justin Gabriel for the 5 years he spent in the WWE. And then when PJ had to leave the podcast world, Mr. Thomas from Major League Wrestling became the co-host. So because I love my little themes, I went with The Gospel of Thomas, and I've had a series of guest co-hosts since then. So sometimes it's the Prophecy of Pacifico or the Chronicles of Quan. But it's been a tough day. It's been a tough 24 hours here in the garden world, in the gospel world, because poor Thomas last night did not prevail in his title match. Mads Atrocity Cruel retained his MLW title match, and poor Akira Kwan did not get over on Don Gatto. In fact, he got punched with a brass knuckles and got tequila to the face, which was not the worst part of it. So it's good to have some important stuff going on here, because I'm really in shatters here. My two of my 4 best friends, I'm not their best friends, they're just my best friends, suffered ignominious defeats, and so I'm not happy about that. So if you like wrestling, these are not typical wrestling shows we talk about. Well, we might talk about something like this, or something that the wrestler is very interested in. Every now and then we break news. So I'm probably scaring away people, thinking like it's too much wrestling, but I promise you it's not like talking about Hulk Hogan and how he, didn't put people over, brother. Anyway, Garden of Thoughts. If you want to follow me on the Twitter or the X, it's at IcarusFellMD. If you do like wrestling and nonsense, at Dose_evil. Shh, don't tell anyone, 2 people. Anyway, Aaron, thanks so much for being here. Do you have an outro song that you would like, something that you associate with your show, with your efforts?
I don't have one specifically, so you can just play whatever. It's fine with me.
Okay. I'll try to come up with something. Who knows? Who knows what I'll do? All right, Owen. Thanks so much. Thanks for being here.
Actually, I can send you one that I've got for my videos.
Perfect. Guest privilege. A little bit of little brand in there. Excellent. Thank you, folks. Cool. See you later in the week.
Yeah.